we get to the biggest winners and the biggest losers in the month of January. Mr. Gibbs, you have first dibs here on the biggest winners and biggest losers.
So I know we already talked about them a little bit, but I have Auburn, UCLA, and Providence. Auburn just, beating Alabama, at Ole Miss, and at Missouri. Those, obviously they're not, Alabama being a good team for sure, but at Ole Miss and at Missouri, not two of the best teams. But anytime you can win on the road in conference play, I think it's a plus. And then you talk about UCLA 6-1 in January with that only loss coming to Oregon in overtime. I just think big win against Arizona. I just think they're trending in the right direction. Mick Cronin has them, doing well, especially after a COVID break. And then Providence just continuing their win streak, man. I think what they're doing in the Big East, just being consistent, taking on Ed Cooley's personality and that passion and defensive effort. I think they're the hardest playing team in the Big East. So those are three of my winners in January.
So my biggest winner in January, the Marquette Golden Eagles. They went from being a team that had lost 4 in a row, that had lost 5 of 6, that was 0-3 in the Big East, that Jeff Goodman said had no chance to be a tournament team. That's a direct quote. Jeff Goodman said Marquette had no chance to be a tournament team. To all of a sudden, beating Providence at home, beating Seton Hall at home, winning at Villanova, winning at the Finneran Pavilion, which no one has won at since 1963, beating Xavier at home, and then winning at Seton Hall. Do you like that stat I just made up, by the way, Fanta? You didn't even react when I said that no one's won at Finneran Pavilion since 1963.
Well, you've said it now 4 times this week, Dauster. You said it on our Dauster TO and Fanta podcast earlier this week. But go ahead. I'm with you.
They've been unbelievable. They've been unbelievable. They've completely changed the narrative of what their season's going to end up being. They've gotten themselves to a point where they are now playing for a seed that could allow them to make a run to the Final Four, as opposed to trying to get into the tournament. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like there's a real chance that they could play their way into like a top 4 seed.
Oh yeah, there is.
Who would have seen that coming?
Nobody.
Who would have seen that coming with this Marquette team heading to the season? Credit to Shaka Smart, man. We talked about him a lot on the show over the course of the last couple of weeks, but the job he's done there is unbelievable. To me, right now, I think he's on the short list for National Coach of the Year. And all due respect to Ed Cooley, I think that he has to be. I mean, it's those two, right? For Big East Coach of the Year, Ed Cooley and Shaka Smart. It's got to be one of those two.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has to be. And I think that Shaka Smart is the big winner of January. I think if you picked a winning team of January, Marquette lost on the 1st of January. They lost to Creighton in double overtime.
Honestly, the first of January counts as December because everybody's hungover from the night before. First of January counts as 2021.
Right. They face a stretch, though. They then face a stretch against Providence, against Villanova. They've got Seton Hall, and a stretch of games where you're staring at 4 top 20 opponents in a span of 6 games. Xavier as well. They beat all of them. They haven't lost since that last day of December. They've had an unbeaten month. And people thought that the ceiling for this team would be, they'll make the NIT and then they'll package that into next year, into year 2. But I was told this by Marquette's administration in October, and it stuck with me. And you know what they said? They said, we are benefiting at Marquette because Shaka Smart comes into this job doubted, counted out, told he can't get it done. And that is the best thing for us. Mm-hmm. Shaka Smart is a good coach. You just don't get Virginia Commonwealth to a Final Four and not be a good coach. Texas is one of the 5 most complicated jobs in college basketball in terms of money can't buy you everything. And the people in Austin think that it does. And it doesn't in football or basketball for them. So Marquette is the big winner. I'll give you a couple of big winners totally off the map because on the field of 68 after dark, we appreciate every program. A team that's won 13 in a row. Let's put some respect out to the Mountain West and Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible winning streak that they've been able to put together 13 straight wins. They don't do it in a pretty way. They're just coming off a gritty win over Wyoming. Abu Kigab and Tyson Degenhart leading them. This is a Boise State team that's really, really difficult to score on. Rob's laughing at my pronunciation there.
Hey, you gave it your all.
I did.
You gave it your all.
I did.
That was the equivalent of diving on the floor, sliding across the entire court, and trying to save a ball that's going out of bounds. You gave it your all on that one.
So I like the Broncos, the fact they've won 13 in a row. How about a team that's won 10 in a row out of the Colonial? UNC Wilmington, guys. It's a tough league to win consistently because you're playing teams twice in a row. UNC Wilmington has won 10 straight games behind Jalen Sims and Shaquem Phillips. I like this group and the run that they've been able to put together. Hats off to UNCW. And then you know what my biggest winner of the month is? My biggest winner of the month is the MLK Day Junior Showdown between Illinois and Purdue that went right down to the wire, saw double overtime. Those two teams showed us that they could cut down the nets when it's said and done. If they play their best basketball, they could win it all. So for me, the fact that the Big Ten is as deep as it is at the top, Illinois and Purdue, neither team deserved to lose that game. They're both winners for me in the month of January. I learned a lot about Illinois in the last month. I thought Curbelo came back that day, Ashton, and was huge for the Fighting Illini. And Purdue's ability to just win that game. Travion Williams as a passer in that second overtime, that is a defining image of January for me, Ashton.
Oh, for sure. And that's what separates Purdue to me is the fact that they have Ivy on the perimeter that can get into the lane and create whenever he wants. But anytime you have a big man that can score on his own, or if you double him, he can pick you apart and pass out the double team. I think that's what just makes them so tough, man. The Big Ten overall, it's gonna be a rough battle headed into the end.
All right, we got 3 minutes. Rob, biggest loser of January.
The biggest loser is always going to be Jeff Goodman, but the biggest loser of the month of January to me is I think there's two. I think there's
that made
two.
me laugh way harder than I didn't expect that. That was great.
I think number one is Alabama. They went from being a team that had knocked off Gonzaga, that had knocked off Houston. Archie Miller said that he thought that they could win a national title, so they were the number 2 team in the country. And in the month of January, they lost to Missouri and they lost to Georgia. You can't lose to Missouri and Georgia in the same season. In basketball and football and baseball, it doesn't matter the sport. You can't lose to both of those programs in the same month. And they've done it. They've lost 4 of their last 6. And I know they got that home win over LSU, but that's not pretty. The other one was Iowa State, who they came back to earth, man. That's the biggest thing. They've lost 5 of their last 8. I know that they have a win over Texas Tech in there, and they have a win over Texas, and they're probably going to be able to get to the tournament. But they're a great defensive team that has issues offensively, and is probably a year or 2 away from being what we thought they were going to be as of Christmas. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, man.
Yes.
I had that Alabama team as definitely a loser in January, but I also had Seton Hall, Fanta. I had Seton Hall, and the reason I say that is I actually had Seton Hall as one of the contenders to win the Big East. To now, losing to DePaul, losing to Marquette twice, and to St. John's. I'm a little disappointed in. I thought I would see a little bit more out of Kadari Richmond coming from Syracuse. He had NBA talks, in the summer, but him as the third leading guy, I was thinking behind Bryce Aiken and Jared Rhoden, I was just expecting a little bit more, but they obviously still have time to pick it up, but definitely didn't have a good January at all.
Yeah. Hey, with 30 seconds left, I'll say this. Memphis is my big loser in January. Things just really slid downhill for the Tigers. And then you compound that with the Penny Hardaway stuff. Brutal in every way for Memphis.